Hey, Shavua Tov, warm welcome to all. Pleasure to learn together with you Parshat Terumah. So this week we have the introduction of a whole new concept, a revolutionary idea for the Jewish people. In the last couple of Parshiot, Bnei Israel received the Torah and the Aseret Dibrot and all the Mishpatim, the civil laws, torts and damages, and theft, and all different types of laws. And now that we have the halachot and we have the blessing of receiving the Torah, so now there's a responsibility placed upon Bnei Israel, and that is the building of a Mishkan in the wilderness. So this is a whole new idea, revolutionary concept for Bnei Israel, and takes us into a different section of the Torah. And the Parsha begins by Daber Hashem Moshe Lemor, Daber el Bnei Israel, speak to Bnei Israel, v'yikchu li truma, and take for me a portion. Me'et kol isha she'idvenu libo tutchua trumati. And so some of the Mefarshim explain, it says, v'yikchu li truma, take for me a truma. It should have said, v'yitnu li, and give for me a contribution to build the Mishkan. However, whenever you give, really you're receiving. And that's why it says, v'yikchu li truma, that when you give to something bigger than yourself, and you give to the Mishkan, and you give to a good cause, you give to others, really you're taking for yourself. You're actually growing as a person, labriyut. Now, what's the reason, now that we're starting with the building of the Mishkan, and it mentions all these different elements that Bnei Israel could give to help build the Mishkan, and the Pasuk says in Pasuk Chet, V'asu li mikdash v'shachanti betocham, make a sanctuary for me, and I will dwell betocham, I will dwell among them. And so this raises the question in terms of what's the reason for the Mishkan? Isn't Hashem everywhere? So, and the Rambam emphasizes the idea that God is not defined by corporal terms. God is not physical. He's not limited to a specific location. So why is it necessary for Bnei Israel to build a Mishkan? One approach is that of Rashi, and actually this is found a little bit later in Perek Lamed Aleph Pasuk Yud Chet, where Rashi says, Ein muktam u'me'ucher b'Torah. If you could find it, you could find it on page 492. Perek Lamed Aleph Pasuk Yud Chet, where Rashi says, 4 lines down, Ein muktam u'me'ucher b'Torah, that actually the portions here are out of place. Rashi said this also by the arrival of Yitro to come to greet Bnei Israel and Moshe. Rashi again says that that's out of place, that really Yitro came after the giving of the Torah. And the Ramban says, no, the Parshiot, the portions are in the correct order, and that Yitro came before the giving of the Torah as it appears in the Chumash. Here also, there's a debate between Rashi and Ramban, and Rashi says that actually the portions are out of place, but even though the command to build the Mishkan is where it is, and the sin of the golden calf, spoiler alert, right, has not yet happened, Rashi says, Ein muktam u'me'ucher b'Torah, Masa egel kodem letzivui melechet hamishkan yamim rabim hayim. That really the episode of the sin of the golden calf took place prior to the command to build the Mishkan. And Rashi proves it and says that really, right, Moshe went up to Har Sinai, and Hashem declared the Aseret Dibrot on Vav Sivan. Moshe was on Har Sinai for 40 days, 40 nights. The Sforno says it was 40 because that's the days. It's not just that because it happened to take 40 days to teach Moshe the Torah. The Sforno says that it's because those are the days that it takes to form a fetus. And scientifically, right, it's kind of like 40 days before the fetus is able to form itself. Of course, the gestational period is 9 months, but it takes 40 days to kind of form the fetus, and the fetus kind of takes on a certain significance at 40 days. And similarly, based on the Sforno seems to be suggesting that Moshe was kind of reborn, and it transforms his identity. He goes up for 40 days, like the formation of a fetus. Moshe Rabbeinu is taking on a new identity, and Bnei Israel as well. When we receive the Torah, it gives us a sense of meaning and purpose, and now we have a new identity. So Moshe Rabbeinu is up on Har Sinai for 40 days, 40 nights. He comes down on the 17th of Tammuz, and that's when he sees the golden calf. And we're going to learn about it more in a couple of weeks. And he breaks the luchot. And then it was only on Yom Kippur, a few months later, that Hashem forgives Bnei Israel for the sin of the golden calf. And the next day, that's when they begin building the Mishkan. So Rashi suggests, you see for sure that the command to build the Mishkan was really after the golden calf. It takes place here in Parshat Terumah, which is before the sin of the golden calf, because that's in Parshat Kedisa. No problem. Ein mukdam u'meuchar batorah. There are times where the portions are out of place. And according to Rashi, it sounds like what Rashi is getting at is that the Mishkan is really a divinely ordained response to the sin of the golden calf, and that it really wasn't part of Hashem's original plan. But when Hashem saw the inability of Bnei Yisrael to relate to him directly, and they needed a calf, which of course was a major sin, major breakdown in faith, but when Hashem saw that they needed something to relate to, and so then Hashem said, create a Mishkan. So in a certain sense, the Mishkan is a concession to the limitations of the Jewish people. Oh, isn't Hashem everywhere? You're right, Hashem is everywhere, but we need the Mishkan, we need the Beit HaMikdash, we need the Beit HaKnesset to kind of help focus our energies, and really it's a concession. The other approach, other school of thought, is the Ramban, who disagrees with Rashi, and the Ramban emphasizes and says, no, that the portions are in their proper order, and that the command to build the Mishkan actually occurred prior to the sin of the golden calf. Yes, the actual building of the Mishkan occurs after Yom Kippur and after the whole episode of the golden calf, but the command to build the Mishkan was part of Hashem's plan all along, and that was before the sin of the golden calf, and that the Mishkan really strengthens Hashem's presence and our relationship with Him. So that, and there's no need to resort to Ein Muktam U'Mucha B'Torah. Right? We like, the Ramban has a much more limited usage of that principle, that the Parshat are out of place. Ramban very much likes to keep the Parshiot in their order. Most of the commentaries like to keep it in order, but Rashi is a little more liberal in his application of that principle, that sometimes the Parshiot are out of order. The Ramban is much more limited, and so that really Hashem is everywhere. But the Mishkan is for us. As the pasuk says, "V'asuli mikdash," build the sanctuary. V'shachanti b'tocham. It doesn't say that build the sanctuary, as you know. It doesn't say build a sanctuary and I will infuse my presence within it. Hashem's presence is everywhere, but build a sanctuary, v'shachanti b'tocham, and then I will be able to infuse my presence. My presence will be felt within amidst Bnei Yisrael b'tocham. And so, really, it's not the only place of Hashem. Hashem is everywhere. But it's a place really to bring Hashem within us. It's a central location to help us kind of connect with Hashem, both in terms of the Mishkan Mikdash, but also with the Beit HaKnesset. And we'll talk about more also. The Ramban develops the idea that the Mishkan was also a perpetuation of an event, that it was a perpetuation of Har Sinai. We'll see later on that it mentions that Hashem descends, His presence descends on the Mishkan like it descended on the mountain, and it talks about the Anan, like the cloud, which is over the Mishkan, and the Anan was at Har Sinai. So there's certain language, there's different elements and formulas of language of the Mishkan that directly parallel the phrases used at Har Sinai, and that the kedusha of Har Sinai was really only for that moment. But we have to we have to draw from that, and part of the idea of the Mishkan is kind of a perpetuation of the Sinai experience. Okay, so we could come back to that, but that's what a couple different approaches in terms of how do you understand the Mishkan. Very interesting, right? That according to Rashi, it's maybe not necessarily the ideal. So Hashem is everywhere, and the Ramban says no. This is like a core component of our tradition, of the blueprint of Hashem. To have a Mishkan, to have a central location. Says that Yaakov, after he has his dream, the famous dream of the ladder that stretches to the heavens, and the Malachim are going up and down the ladder. So Yaakov says that Achein Yesh Hashem b'makom hazeh, that Hashem is in this place, v'anochi lo yadati, and I didn't even realize it. What place was that? So one explanation is that was Har Moriah, that was Yerushalayim. And so he was, wow, Hashem is in this place, and this is a holy place. But another interpretation of the Mefarshim is that the Makom Hazeh was just a random place. And what Yaakov was surprised to learn was that, wow, Yesh Hashem b'makom hazeh, that Hashem is here too. Hashem is everywhere. And so that seems to be, kind of like, do we emphasize the holy places, or do we emphasize the fact that really Hashem is everywhere? And the answer is that really we have both. That there's certain specific areas of Kedusha that have to be treated with respect, that are areas that are conducive to Torah, to Tefillah, to connect to Hashem. But really the idea is, and this is an important piece, is that it's not that build the Mishkan and Hashem's presence is within the Mishkan. Yes, Hashem's presence is within the Mishkan, but the idea is that we should bring Hashem within us, v'shachanti b'tocham, and we're the ones who are uplifted. We're the ones who are uplifted through the Mishkan and Mikdash, and Hashem, because Hashem's presence is everywhere, and so we have to take that kedusha of the Mishkan, of the Beit HaKnesset, and of course be holy Jews wherever we go. There's a what's that? The joke about the guy who's he's a thief, and he finds a lost object, finds a watch on the street, and he brings it back to the rabbi. He says, Rabbi, I found this watch on the street and I wanted to return it because it's a mitzvah to do Hashavat Aveda. The rabbi says, wow, Yankel, you're known as the thief in the neighborhood. And that's so wonderful. I'm so proud of you that you did this mitzvah of returning a lost object. Thank you so much. And then Yankel leaves the office, and the rabbi looks and he realizes, oh my gosh, his own watch is gone because Yankel had taken it. He runs after Yankel. He says, Yankel, I don't believe it. You just returned the watch and then you took my watch. And Yankel says, Rabbi, what's the problem? Returning your watch is a mitzvah. Stealing your watch, that's my business. And I think one key lesson, I think that maybe emerges really both from Rashi and the Ramban. Because according to Rashi, really Hashem is everywhere. It's a concession to the limitations of Bnei Israel that Hashem has to tell Bnei Israel to build a Mishkan. And really Hashem is everywhere. And according to Ramban as well, the Ramban says that Hashem is everywhere. And really the purpose is to strengthen us, to help us focus and strengthen our relationship with Him, and build a mikdash and bring God b'tocham within us. Hashem will rest present within us wherever we go. And of course that we can't bifurcate between mitzvot and business and our regular lives. So to draw from the kedusha of the Mishkan, so to draw from the mitzvot, and to make a kiddush Hashem, and continue to observe mitzvot in our regular daily lives. Let's continue to move a little bit, and then we'll get some thoughts and questions. The last thing that's offered for the Mishkan are these Avnei Shoham v'Avnei Miluim, and these were the precious stones that were used for the ephod and the breastplate. And this is like the last on the list of all the different materials. Commentaries point out that these were the most expensive stones, the most precious stones on the entire list. Why they listed last? So I forgot where I learned that one of the explanations is that even though they were precious and they went towards the ephod, the apron, and the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol, but it didn't really require much effort to procure these stones. And that they apparently had these stones, but a lot of the other things that it required, maybe the tchelet and argaman, there was more effort and work that was required to acquire these things, to produce these things, to make sure they were high quality, the tchelet and the argaman and all the different threads and all the different things that were used for the Mishkan. But by the Avnei Shoham and Avnei Miluim, those were really expensive because they were rare, but they really didn't require much effort. And the Torah wants us to give of ourselves and give effort to what we're doing. As it says, Lafum Tzara Agra, according to the effort, is the amount of reward. And perhaps that's why Avnei Shoham and Avnei Miluim are last on the list, because really they didn't require so much effort. Reminds me of the famous saying when a person makes a siyum, we say anu mamelim vehem mamelim, that we work when we study Torah, when we do mitzvot, vehem mamelim, and the people who are not doing mitzvot, they also do work. But anu mamelim, when we do work, mekablim schar, we receive reward. Vehem mamelim, and they do work, ve'ein mekablim schar, and they don't receive reward. So we're kind of giving a chizuk, kind of a psych up to, when you learn and do mitzvos, you get tremendous reward for it. We work and they work. We work, receive reward. They work and don't receive reward. The Chavetz Chaim asks the question. Some of you have heard this. Just remind you. Chavetz Chaim says that I don't understand that if you have, let's say, a tailor or an accountant. So a tailor does work and he gets paid for the work that he does. An accountant. Right, is asked to do your taxes, asked to do a business's taxes. So he spends a lot of hours on it, and he's compensated for it. So why do we say that when you're learning Torah and you're doing mitzvos, so then you get reward? But for people who are not doing mitzvos, then you're not getting reward. Now, of course, to make a honest, hard-earned living that's part of you have to do that as well, and there's a tremendous Jewish value in that as well. But we're contrasting mitzvot and things that are not mitzvot, so that when you learn and do mitzvot, you work and you get reward, and those in life, you work and you don't get reward. But people who work in life, you also get reward. So the Chavetz Chaim says that yes, that if you're a tailor and you produce good work, you finish the pants, you finish the suit, you finish the dress, then you get paid for your work. If you don't do a good job, if the tailor doesn't do a good job, then he or she is not going to get paid for their work. That's one of the themes. My mom and I were joking about this. That's the theme of this month is dresses, right? Because we have a wedding, Baruch Hashem, coming up. So it's dresses, and tailoring, and fittings. And so, the dress needs to fit. And the pants need to fit. Like the one where the tailor worked for like 6 weeks on a pair of pants. And the guy picks it up and he says, okay, they fit beautifully, but they fit beautifully. You did a great job, but 6 weeks. And the tailor, and the guy says to the tailor, and it took God 6 days to create the world. It takes you 6 weeks on a pair of pants. And the tailor said, yeah, but look at the world. And look at these pair of pants. But what the Chavetz Chaim explains, he says that when you're involved in a mitzvah, so with a tailor and an accountant, right, or any job, if you do a good job and you satisfy the requirements of that task, then you're going to get paid, and you deserve to be paid. But you don't get paid for the effort. I mean, that could be part of the arrangement, of course, the hours that you put in, but you're not going to be paid for the effort if really ultimately you don't get the job done. Generally, you're not going to be paid. And that's what we're saying, that when you do a mitzvah and you learn Torah, not only are you, of course, when you grow from that learning and you retain that learning, that's wonderful. But you also get credit for the effort that you put into the learning. You get paid for the effort that you put into the mitzvah, and so that's what we say. We work and toil and receive reward, and those who are not involved in mitzvot toil and don't receive reward because they don't receive reward for the toil out there in the world. But when it comes to a mitzvah and it comes to Torah learning, you get rewarded also for the effort itself. And in certain respects, the effort is what helps you maximize the mitzvah experience, right? When you put effort and preparation into Shabbos, when you put effort and preparation into a mitzvah of chesed or whatever it might be, right? So that helps make the Shabbos or the mitzvah that much more special. And you get credit, there's a value for the preparation and the effort as well. Okay, so that's the Avnei Shalom, Avnei Mulim. Those were last because those required the least effort. I wanted to now learn a few things from the Aron, because the first thing that's mentioned in the building of the Mishkan, and we learn Rashi and Ramban, and which kind of relates to the transcendence of Hashem and the immanence of Hashem, and there's kind of a constant dialectic between those two things. But I wanted to get into the Aron, but before that, if I think there was maybe a question. Okay, Ayala, what's up?
Realized that before that the Mishkan was a commandment to do before Chayei.
Right.
Which in my makes even more terrible. Because here you were told
Wow.
to build the Mishkan, the Shachantim B'Tocham, and then they turn around and build.
Wow, great point. As if you say like Ramban that the Parshat are in order, that is even more jarring. That here you have this command to build the Mishkan, and then they turn around and do this with the Ched Egel.
You know, when you were talking about getting a reward for doing mitzvot and getting no
Right.
particular, I think honestly we learn so much that when we do certain mitzvot, the reward we get is later. We don't
Beautiful.
get it now,
Beautiful.
but we do get reward.
Excellent point, Miriam. Because even though I said that when you work and you put in effort, you get rewarded. You get rewarded not just for the conclusion, for the goal, but even for the effort that you put in. But Miriam is adding that, how do we see that reward? And how is that reward manifested? We don't know exactly how that works, and we hopefully get it in this world. In many ways, when you live a life of mitzvah and learning Torah, so then your life takes on a whole, it's living a life of purpose. And when you have connection to Hashem and you have teshuvah, tefillah, tzedakah, makes things easier. So I think there is reward in this world as well, but you're absolutely right that we don't know exactly when we get that reward. And of course, the ultimate reward is in Olam Haba. Great point, Miriam. When it comes to the Aron, page 446, the first thing that's mentioned is the Aron. The Aron was in the Holy of Holies. And so that was kind of like the central thing in the Mishkan. It's interesting because we're going to see in Parshat Vayakal Pekudei that they didn't build the Aron first. In terms of the actual construction, they built the walls first. Because you need to build the house first. You need to build the structure first. Then you bring the holy items and you bring the furniture and the couch and the table and the beds and other things into the house. Similarly, with the Mishkan, you build the walls first, and then you bring the Mishkan. Within that Mishkan, you bring the Shulchan and the Aron and the menorah, etc. But the Aron is mentioned here first. Why? Because in a certain sense, the Aron that's the goal, and that's the purpose of the Mishkan. The Aron represents Torah, and actually in the Aron were the second tablets, and you had the broken first tablets, and according to Rabbi Meir, also you had a Sefer Torah, and so you have that you have the Luchos and you have a Sefer Torah that are in the Aron, and the Aron was in the Holy of Holies, was right in the center of the Mishkan. And the first word is in Pasuk Yud. It says V'yasu Aron atzei shitim. So the commentaries point out that it says V'yasu in the plural, and that's different than by Shulchan. By the Shulchan, it says V'yasita in the singular. You should make the Shulchan, the table that had the bread on it. It says by the menorah V'yasita menorah zahav. It says it in the singular, but by the Aron, it says it in the plural. And perhaps that's kind of highlighting the idea that every single person has a relationship with Torah. And every single person has a relation with Hashem, but especially through the area of Torah, that every single person has a chelek, has a portion in Torah. This is partially what the Yitro was coming to teach, was coming to tell Moshe, when Moshe Rabbeinu was judging the people the entire day. And Yitro says, you're going to become tired, you become weary, you're going to wither. And Yitro says you have to delegate the authority. Suddenly Yitro is the management consultant for Moshe. So I think it wasn't just to help make it easier for Moshe, but rather Yitro is saying to Moshe that I thought the idea of Matan Torah is that it's supposed to empower the individual. It's supposed to be taking them away from Mitzrayim. In Mitzrayim, so then the individual was demeaned, and it was the leader, it was the cultic leader who was glorified. It was the king who had all the privileges. But Matan Torah is about empowering the individual. Every single Jew has kedusha. Every single person has a relation with Hashem, and so that's what Yitro was suggesting to Moshe and critiquing Moshe. And Vayishma Moshe hears it. And he kind of spreads the wealth, and he appoints others others to be judges and officers over the people, so that, right, to kind of highlight the democratization a little bit of the rulings of learning of Torah, scholarship of Torah, but also connection to Torah. All the different measurements, it says amatayim v'chetzi okaro, 2.5 amos long, the amma v'chetzi rachbo, 1.5 amos wide, the amma v'chetzi kamaton, 1.5 amot high. So that's interesting. It's 2.5 by 1.5 by 1.5. Is there symbolism of that? And then it says, "Tzipito so zahav tahor," you should plate it with gold. That it should be with gold on the outside and on the inside. And then v'yasita alav zer zahav saviv. You should make kind of a gold crown all around the aron. And Rashi here says that Bezalel, who is the chief architect of the Mishkan, Bezalel and Oliav and all those who were involved, and the Medrash says that there's different ways to get involved. There were those who contributed. There were those who, in other words, there were those who contributed money, contributed gold, and contributed silver. They contributed financially. Then you had others who were involved in the work, right, of building, of fashioning the menorah, fashioning the aron, of building it, of building the tapestries and the curtains. And the third way is they sheichavnu. There were those who thought about it. They had kavana towards the project. And nowadays also within Jewish community, within the shul, you have people who contribute financially. And of course, everyone tries their best in that area to the degree that they can. And then also you have people who get more involved. Right? They're involved in project. They're involved in volunteering. They're involved in, hands-on in making things happen. And then the third is you have people who are kind of thinking about what's the vision of the community. Maybe also it's those on the board and the leadership who are thinking about what's the vision and the strategy and the strategic plan for the community. So that's the Medrash. The Medrash says there are 3 different ways to help. Now Rashi says that Bezalel made 3 different arons. He made 1 of wood, and then 2 of gold. And there were 3, I don't know, I guess a little bit like a Russian doll, right? Well, one inside the other. So he had the biggest one of the gold, then medium one was the wood, and then the smallest one was of gold. The pasuk says that it had to be plated on the inside and on the outside with gold. So why not make the whole thing of gold? Maybe then it would be too heavy to carry.
Gold's a soft alloy.
Maybe it'd be too heavy to carry. But the Torah cares about the people who are carrying the aron too. They care about the custodians and the people who are schlepping the stuff. Here it's the holy materials in the Mishkan, but also maybe it's a message, for people who, carry things and deliver things also. We care about those people. And another reason why the middle was wood and not all of gold, because the Torah cares about our finances as well. Didn't want it to be all of gold. That would maybe be too expensive. Yes, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking about the cost of tuition and the high cost of Jewish living and tuition. So, but in any case, well, they needed to. So the question that the Chazal ask, the rabbis ask, is why does it need to be plated with gold in the inside? Because the aron was rarely, if ever, opened. They put the luchot in there, first luchot, the second luchot, and the Sefer Torah was either inside or on a shelf attached to it. But why do you need it to be gold on the inside? And also, why is it 2.5 by 1.5 by 1.5 labriut? And so there's so many different lessons that you could learn from these parshiot, like with all parshiot, and that from the Mishkan and from the items in the Mishkan, they each they have lessons for us as human beings to incorporate into our lives. So perhaps the idea here, it's speaking to the need for Chazal say that a Talmud and a Jew has to be tocho kabaro, right? Your inner character has to match your external persona, and that there should be an integrity and consistency within the individual. And so that's a bias in mechutzas benu. That's why you need to have gold on the inside, on the outside, right? That every single Jew should be tocho kaboru. Really, it's a principle of great moral significance that your inner life needs to correspond to your external life, and only then that's the genuine Jew and a genuine scholar. And why is it 1.5 by 1.5 by 2.5? An amma is around 1.5 to 2 feet. So if it's right 2.5 amot long and 1.5 amot wide and 1.5 amot high. Why? Because a person should not view himself or herself as a finished product. The Aron represents Torah and represents pursuit of Torah, and that it's in half measurements to say, yes, that you've accomplished a lot, but that you have more yet to accomplish. And this is the notion of always integrating confidence with humility. So yes, that you have accomplished something, but you're only halfway there. And that we've mentioned this in the past. This was the Chet of Korach, remember? Where Korach says, Kulam Kedoshim, we're all holy. And so there was something wrong with what he said. Obviously, it was a revolt against Moshe and Aaron. But why was Korach wrong? The pasuk says, "Kedoshim tiyu," you should all strive for holiness. Well, the answer is that because you should strive for holiness, you should always be in a mode of perpetual striving. Whatever you've accomplished, you want to accomplish more. And it's not just where you are, but where you're heading. And as soon as a person thinks that, oh, I've accomplished everything, I've accomplished my mission, I've done everything, then what purpose is it to be in this world anymore? So that no matter how much you've accomplished, you want to go reach a higher level. You want to grow even more. So that's what Kedoshim Tiyu should strive for holiness. That's the right approach. But Korach's approach of saying Kulam Kedoshim is saying, oh, we did it already. We're all holy. We've done it, and we have nothing else to do. So here, by the Torah, by the Aron, so it says, right. That's why it's in half measurements, because we have much more yet to accomplish. When it comes to the Aron, so it says that it has to have these poles, and b'tavot Aron yuabadim, that you have to put the poles to attach it to the Aron. And the Torah says, lo yusur mimenu, that you can't remove the poles from the Aron. Makes a very, very big deal about this. It's like a prohibition. You can't remove the pole. Now, the purpose of the poles was just to carry the Aron. Well, why is it so important that the poles always be connected to the Aron? And Rav Shamshon Rafal Hirsch says that, gives an answer, says that the Aron again represents Torah, and it represents tradition. And the idea of the poles is to teach us that wherever you go, right, wherever you go, and in every generation, you have to carry that Torah together with you. Again, the Torah is not just meant for the Beis HaKnesses and the Mishkan. Hashem is everywhere, and we're supposed to be learning from these ideas to the way we live our lives. So that's right. It has to be with integrity and consistency. Gold on the inside, gold on the outside. It's with confidence and humility. That's why it's 2.5 by 1.5 by 1.5. And it's taking the Torah wherever we go, to the market, on the street, right? We should be carrying the Torah proudly and prominently on our shoulders, and that's why there's poles that are connected to the Aron, and it can never be removed. With the Aron, as I said, that you had the luchot, the tablets were in the Aron. The broken tablets were also in the Aron. So it shows that that's very significant. That's a very powerful idea. That the mistakes that we have in the past, that's also part of who we are. That's part of how we grow. Aaron, a Kohen, who is the one who is supposed to go into the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur. So it says, Bezot Yavo Aaron ala Kodesh, that right, the Aaron is in the Holy of Holies. And it was one time a year that Aaron was supposed to go into Holy of Holies, and it's Bezot in Parshat Achremot with a certain sacrificial service. And it says later that Aaron didn't want to go in. Moshe needed to encourage him and say, no, please go in, you have to go and do the service as a Kohen Gadol. What was Aaron nervous about? Rashi says because he saw the altar, he saw the horns, and it made him think of the horns of the golden calf, and his complicated role in the golden calf, right? Because Aaron, Aaron maybe could have stopped it, and Aaron was part of it. And also, when he thought about the Holy of Holies and the Aaron, he thought about his two sons, Nadav and Avihu, who died, right? Who died tragically and opened the Mishkan in the Holy of Holies. And so Aaron didn't want to do it. So according to Rashi, Moshe had to encourage Aaron to move forward. And maybe that's an idea I once learned about Bizot. It's not just that Bizot with a certain sacrificial service, Aaron should go into the Holy of Holies. But Bizot, with those experiences, with those difficulties, that's how you should continue forward into the Holy of Holies. You don't have to, as painful as they are, but you don't deny them, and it doesn't take away who you are as a person. On the contrary, Sheva Yipol Tzaddik will come, the Tzaddik falls and stumbles, and there's challenges, and he gets up and he grows through those challenges. So Bezot Yavo Aaron Ala Kodesh. With those experiences, you should move forward to the holy, to accomplishment, to Holy of Holies. Hashem wants us to be honest and to bring our experiences with us as we move forward. And so that's why in the Aron was actually the luchot was also the broken luchot.
Please mute.
Yeah, Abby.
Is there a reason why it doesn't say anything about doors to the ark? How do you put the luchot in
Oh,
them?
very good. A great question. It doesn't mention about doors. There was actually a cover, and that was called the kaporet. The kaporet was the cover, and the kaporet had the kruvim, had the cherubs on top. So that was a whole interesting piece to the Aron that I was going to hopefully get to. But that's
Is
the
that the
cover
outer
here.
gold? Is that the outer gold? I mean, is it a hollow box? What is it?
Yes, it was a hollow box, and it was gold plated on the inside, gold on the outside, and there was a cover on top. So to put the things
okay.
into the Aron, they would remove the cover.
Okay,
Now,
thanks.
Dot Yavor Aron Ala Kodesh. With this, he entered into the Holy of Holies, and that's why the broken tablets were also included in the Aron. But there was a Sefer Torah, and there was Luchot, and everything was lying down in the Aron. Everything was lying down in the Aron. So based on that detail, Rabbeinu Tam, writing in the 12th century, he says that really the Sifrei Torah in our shul's Aron Kodesh should also be lying down in a horizontal position. After all, the shul is a miniature Beit HaMikdash Mishkan, and the Aron in the shul and the Torahs in the Aron are patterned after the Aron in the Mishkan. So the consensus was that the Sefer Torah was lying down in the Aron in the Mishkan. The Sefer Torah was lying down in the Aron in the Mishkan, so we should put them lying down in the Aron. And actually, Rabbeinu Tam was upset that he only realized this after he finished the construction of their shul, because they built the Aron in a certain way, and he lamented that he didn't build the Aron Kodesh wide enough to be able to accommodate horizontal Sifrei Torah, to lie down all the Sifrei Torah. But Rav David ben Zimra, known as the Radvaz, was the chief rabbi of Egypt for 40 years in the 1500s. He explains that there's a difference between the Mishkan and our modern day Beit HaKnesset in the 16th century or the 21st century. That he says, why is it different? Because the Torah, Sefer Torah, and the Luchot that were in the Mishkan, they remained there. They weren't taken out to be learned from for various reasons. I mean, just that wasn't what they did. But with the Aron and the Shul, we're taking out the Torah on Monday and Thursday and Shabbos, and we bring out the Torah to read from it, to learn from it, on Simchat Torah to dance with it. And so Rav Ben Zimra says that since we take out the Torahs and we use it on a regular basis, So it has to be easily accessible, it has to be ready for action. And so that's why the Torah is, we stand, the Torah is up in the Aron, so it's kind of ready for action, ready to be learned. And the second reason the Radbaz says, really, I think also is a beautiful idea. He says that in the Mishkan, that there was a sacrificial service, you had the menorah, and you had the showbread, and you had prayer, but the prayer wasn't like you had prayer towards the Aron. There was a lot of things going on, and you had karbanos happening in the Mishkan. However, in the shul, the custom is to face towards the Aron. And of course, that should also be facing Eretz Yisrael. We're supposed to be facing, direction of Eretz Yisrael. And so the Radbaz says that since we stand in prayer, yes, we sit and we stand. That's kind of how you know who knows what they're doing, right? The sitting and standing, and you're just watching everyone else when they're standing. But the core of tefillah is the Shemona Esrei, when we stand in front of Hashem. So since we're standing in prayer towards the Aron, says the Radbaz, the Torah stands in respect of Am Yisrael, because there's a mutual reciprocal relationship between us and Hashem. And we show honor to Hashem, and Hashem, so to speak, shows honor to us. If we say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, as the Gemara says, that's in our tefillin. In Hashem's tefillin, whatever that means, Hashem has nachas that Mi Ka'amcha Yisrael, Gaya Echad Ba'aretz, who is like the nation of Israel. And I think that's just a beautiful idea. It's really a bold statement. And it's understood in this way. When we envision the standing Torah in the Aron, it's a reminder that it's not a one-way street. It's about us honoring Hashem, and then Hashem and the Torah saluting us and being proud of everything that we're doing. And that's kind of highlighting this idea that, as with half measurements is humility, but to also recognize who we are and recognize our stature. And that we have the ability, to do mitzvot that bring honor to Torah and bring godliness and goodness into the world. And we have such ability to live on such a level that almost like HaKadosh Baruch Hu salutes us, gives us a yasher koach. And so we stand for the Torah, and the Torah stands for us. Yeah, Ayala.
Didn't they also read those days on Mondays and Thursdays because people didn't go out?
Yes.
We did.
Yes. The Gemara says that they read from the Torah all the way back. That was a takana, that was a decree made all the way back by Moshe and by at that time, where he established it to read on Monday, Thursday, and Shabbat. That's right. Ezra later on, kind of maybe he added on some requirements, and he added on Shabbos Mincha laning, but that's right. It goes all the way back, Monday, Thursday, Shabbat. But they didn't. They read a different. But they read a Torah. They read from the Torah, but the Torah that was in the Aron was in the Aron. They didn't use the Torah in the Aron.
That's the one that God.
They had a different Torah that they read from. Great point. They had a different Torah they read from. The Torah in the Aron stayed in the Aron. Yeah, Rifki.
That was more emphasis on korbanot than on the Torah in the case of the house. You hear a lot of korbanot.
Right.
Steak, Shabbos,
Right.
Yeah, so that's a statement, but it's a question.
Yes. Okay. So that gets into the whole topic. Rifki asked about korbanot, about the role of sacrifices. That's a whole separate topic. So thankfully we have Parshat Vayikra and Sa, but it does seem that sacrifices play a central role. Prayer was always part of it, but certainly a major thing was sacrifices. Nowadays that we don't have the sacrifices, we just have prayer. And the Rambam actually says that sacrifices, the Rambam, it's controversial, we'll have to study it more, but he basically says that it was also a kind of an accommodation for the low level of Bnei Israel, because they were in Mitzrayim. And Mitzrayim, they offered sacrifice, they're false gods. So Hashem thought it'd be too difficult for Bnei Israel to totally take them away from that. So instead of totally nullifying that or abolishing a sacrificial worship, Hashem said, of course, don't offer sacrifices to the false gods. Offer sacrifices to me. Made it a mitzvah. That's a central form of worship. It was something that Bnei Israel were used to. But the Rambam says that a higher level of service is prayer and meditation. That gets into, okay, but the Rambam does seem to say that when the Beis HaMikdash is going to be rebuilt in the future, there is going to be a restoration of sacrifices. So yes, but wait a second, I thought that tefillah is on a higher level. So there's a lot of interesting discussion for another. We'll come back to that. Yeah, Susan.
Well, I have a basic question. These Parshat have always been problematic to me in the past. I've come to terms with it now because the idea of Am Yisrael, as opposed to the world as it was the physical gods and all the structures that they built for their temples and their and the whole idea of Am Yisrael. This Mishkan is so physical.
Right.
I understand where it's coming from. I understand it's learned from it. I understand it's a metaphor and reflection, but the fact that it's such a visual goal, and how do you explain in terms of what Hashem is putting into how are we different? Now I understand how we're different, but it would almost seem more of a revolution. Maybe they want
Right.
to create a Tom that had a Torah.
Okay, great question. Great question. So why not the higher levels to have the Torah, to have prayer? Why do you need something that's so physical, so focused on the gold, the silver, on these things? And so it's a great question. I think it gets into the debate between Rashi and Ramban that we started with. Rashi says it really more was an accommodation to Bnei Israel, to the level that they were on. But even whether it's Rashi or the Ramban, in a certain sense, here the Torah is presenting us with an incredible concept that you could take something physical and you could sanctify it. You could take wine and you use it for a mitzvah like Kiddush. You could take a hut and bamboo and plants and things like that, and you can make it into a cloud of glory. You can make it into a sukkah. And so that's maybe part of it, is that, look, we are living in the physical world. And part of the idea of the Mishkan is that we could really elevate the physical, and it's really, through these physical items, it really is v'shachanti basuli mikdash v'shachanti betocham, that I'm going to dwell. My presence, God says, is going to dwell in Bnei Israel. So you're absolutely right. The physical is not the goal. The goal is to bring it into every single person. And what you see, what I'm trying to show here with this shiur, is that you have here a Mishkan, which is this physical object, hard to relate to, but it really is there to kind of, for us, for us to draw Hashem into our lives. And that the Aron, which is the kind of the repository of Torah, it represents Torah. It has poles to show that we have to carry it with us wherever we go. And it's plated even on the inside, even though nobody saw it, to show that every single person has to be a person of consistency and integrity, where, right, your actions match your inner character and vice versa to the best degree that you can. There should be kind of an equilibrium and a balance between who you are as a personality and how you refine that personality. And that whatever we've achieved, right, we have more yet to achieve. And this idea of that we keep the Torah standing, right? Because we have to always take advantage of that opportunity to study Torah. And at the same time, the difference that we make even causes the Torah to stand for us. You see here all these different ideas how we could take from the Mishkan to also gain a better appreciation of our Beit Knesset, and the role that it plays in our lives. Shekoach. Yeah.
The Torah doesn't have an order. I think that the fact of the on that assumption would have made sense why we needed to have that physical Aron, because it was clear that we were not capable